Hello, hello, hello. What is up, Austin? Hi. Hi, you nerds. You came? Are you nerds? Thanks so much. I'm a nerd too. Thank you for being here. My name is Ilana Glazer. My pronouns are they and she, and I'm the co-founder of the Generator Collective, which was founded in 2016, aiming to humanize policy. We'll give it a try. We host conversations like this. We throw dance parties all around the country where you can get a cheat sheet for the voting booth on upcoming elections at the local and state level, and we make those cheat sheets also in the form of web series for state and federal elections. So in this next hour, we're going to highlight the importance of local and state elections and how they affect our basic human rights. And also how the decisions of our basic human rights sit in the hands of those policymakers who are at the local level. So I'm partnering with ACLU to put this event on because I myself am struggling to feel motivated. I've been an activist, an organizer, an advocate pointedly for the past, it's 2024, right? So 14 minus 6 is 8, 2016. So for the past 8 years, and I'm finding myself at a newly dehumanized place when it comes to politics. And I thought, how might I feel a little bit better? And that is to look at just to talk about it, first of all, and to look at local elections. So my co-host is Jess Weitz in the pink here. Whoop, whoop! Her pronouns are she, her, and she's the Director of Artist and Entertainment Engagement at the ACLU. Jess, you come from managing and supporting artists in the music industry and create and lead how the ACLU nationwide works with artists to build our activist platforms to serve the most tactical and critical good across the many issues ACLU fights for, which includes queer rights, reproductive freedom, immigrants' rights, racial justice, classroom censorship, and voting rights, which is not all of the issues that they serve.
We have a lot of issues, don't we?
Yeah, you guys got issues. So our guests, we are so lucky to have these guests. We are so lucky and privileged to have you, Danny Brown, a musician. Yeah, give it up for Danny Brown for being here with us tonight, this afternoon. Danny's a musician and podcast host. He was a prodigy breaking into the local Detroit music scene at the young age of 22. He built his solo career as an international touring superstar with 7 albums, the most recently, which is called Quaranta, and he's touring that now. His fire is undeniable, his sound is totally unique, and as a podcast host and public personality, Danny is real and true, and we, his fans, love him for it. So in 2020, Danny worked with Generator because it was his first time voting, and he offered his story and experience on our digital series so that other people voting for the first time could see that choice modeled.
So I'm going to keep it going. So we have the 2 superstars over there. And our next superstar that we want to introduce you to is Vanessa Fuentes. Her pronouns are she, her. Yes, give it up for your local council person here in Austin. She represents District 2 on the Austin City Council. She was born and raised in Central Texas. Vanessa's mother immigrated from Mexico. Her father is a military veteran. And since taking office in 2021, Vanessa has fought for and improved the health and livability, the affordability. She's focused on creative arts, which we love, and the quality of life for all people living in Austin. Thank you. And we have another superstar, James Tallarico. Please give it up. His pronouns are he, him. Since 2018, James Tallarico has represented the 52nd district in the Texas House of Representatives. So before joining the State House, James was a teacher with Teach for America, teaching 6th grade English in San Antonio. I'm wondering which is harder. And he's an 8th generation Texan. Thank you.
Wild. So a quick icebreaker before we start. What song or artist are you guys into right now?
Me right now, I'm listening to a artist named Underscores.
Underscores?
Yeah,
Cool.
I really love Underscores.
Yeah.
So
Cool. What's
that's
their vibe?
my go-to shower music.
Okay, cool.
You know.
Underscores. Let's take notes.
Very nice. I mean, I'm a big Taylor Swift fan. I'm a Swiftie.
Swiftie in the
yes. So I'm super excited for her new album, The Tortured Poet Society, which is going to drop in April. So I'm very excited. I love all of her albums, and she's one of my favorite artists.
Did you see her on tour?
I did.
Ooh, how was it?
It was incredible. The Eras Tour, amazing. Highly recommend it. If you haven't seen it, it's going to be streaming live, I think, next month on Netflix.
Cool. How about you, James?
Well, as a Texan, I'm very excited that Beyonce is releasing a country album.
Yes!
So, I think 16 Carriages is one of the best songs I've heard in a long time.
Yeah, so good.
Very excited about that album.
I was excited about Texas Hold'em. I was getting down to that. I've been listening to Thames lately. Like,
What's the vibe?
I mean, honestly, like so, you can't replicate her vibe. What would you call it? Do you know Thames?
Yeah, she's
What would you
dope.
call her?
I don't know, it's a vibe.
It's a vibe. So unique, but it like makes me so emotional, and I need it for release. What about you, Jess?
Well, I was going to say Beyonce and Texas Hold'em, but
Yeah.
I was also listening to Danny getting ready. So
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
I don't know how to feel about that.
you should feel pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for playing with me on the Icebreaker. Okay, so a big tenet of Generator is that the system is made purposely elusive so that most people don't engage with it. I'm even like the Constitution. You know what I mean? Just like from baseline, like hard to read, not chill. You know, I mean, it's just like, and then when you break it down and you see people just doing like evil shit with that elusiveness, it's like, you're not better than me. You know what I mean? You're not smarter just because you're going through the steps to pass something into a bill. And with, as a like constituent and as a voter, having that sort of weight on me, I'm wondering, Vanessa, you're in city politics and you grew up here, and I'm curious what motivated you to run, what that hinge was from citizen to someone who's like, I can actually run this place and do it well.
Yeah. I mean, for me, one thing to know about Austin, which is now the 10th largest city, is you truly do realize how the system is not set up for you, right? The system's not set up for people of color. Here in this city, the capital city of Texas, we are one of the most racially segregated communities in the country. We're also segregated economically, and our interstate, it cuts our community in half between our Black and brown communities who largely reside on the east side and others who live on the west side. And the reason why I decided to run for office in 2020 is because I realized just how significant the health divide we had here in our city. If you are an Austinite who lives east, your on average life expectancy is at least 10 to 20 years less than Austinites who live west. So your zip code is determining your life outcome. Whew. And that is fundamentally not okay, especially in this day and age. And so for me, it was important to do something about it. But I will be honest, like oftentimes you don't get young people who run for office and get elected, but it matters when you have representation who actually look like you, who understand your values and are willing to fight the system to ensure that we don't have these inequities and these divides.
And that's right. And I said like elusive, and I'm talking about it being academic, but also the age thing. Just the fact that you're two Texas elected officials, and, it's more motivating than what we're looking at federally, which is so, I don't even want to actually like put my feelings onto it, but it's really nice to see your faces and hear you talk like people that I talk to. It makes a huge difference. Danny, we worked together in 2020 on the web series, on Generator's web series, Cheat Sheet for the Voting Booth, and that was your first time voting. And you did a lot of relational organizing for that election, texting your friends, getting people together, making it a vibe, making it a day, making it kind of an event. How do you feel in the past 4 years that the culture and energy has shifted?
I just think people are more, socially conscious and just being more aware of, that, every vote counts kind of thing, As someone, being from Detroit, I've been in Austin for the last 3 years. But, being in Detroit, you can see how corrupt things can be. So, you just got to know for yourself and for your kids, for everybody else that's coming up, that everything counts, man. So I always just try to get, people excited about, getting out there and trying to do the right thing.
And James, you are an 8th generation Texan. That is like unbelievable. That's crazy. How does your identity direct you to engage with the political system?
Yeah, so as an 8th generation Texan, my family's been here since it was Mexico. And I love this state, and I think a lot of you do too. You're here at South by Southwest, enjoying our Texas music, our Texas food, our Texas culture. I think I see some people wearing cowboy boots and maybe a cowboy hat here and there. But right-wing extremists have taken over our state. And they're giving Texas a bad name. I hear from folks all the time across the country, across the world, who now think Texas is one of the worst places on earth. And that breaks my heart. And, when I have those conversations with people, it's helpful to remember what we love about this state. There's this old country song by Gary P. Nunn, a great Austin artist, called What I Like About Texas. And in that song, he lists the rivers and the bluebonnets and the music and the food, but he finally rests on one answer. He says, it's the spirit of the people who share this land. And that resonates with me because Texans are known for their hospitality. The nickname for our state is the friendly state. Friendship is literally our state's official motto. And what folks don't understand is that the right-wing policies that have dominated headlines don't reflect the spirit of the people who share this land.
I laughed when you said that Texas state motto is friendship because there's this comedian, Ronnie Chang, who, did anybody see that clip where he's like, that's the motto of Texas? Because, people are giving it a bad name. So, but it's true, and it's so nice to hear that it resonates with you as someone who comes from this state intergenerationally.
I also feel like that's kind of the way that we are going to counter all of the negative and the feeling of apathy, no empathy, only apathy. In this system, you have this relentless 24/7 news cycle. It feels like they're throwing bad news every day, and for good reason, there's things happening. But if we can remember the people in these states and the people who have the power to vote and the people whose lives are truly at risk, but also the ability to be uplifted by the rules and the laws that good people pass, I think that gives us hope. And it's at least, this panel is about hope, and it gives us an opportunity to kind of think of something to get us out the door and get moving. Danny, we hear a lot about this stuff, but you're an artist, so you're hearing it from your audience, you're hearing it from yourself. So where are you getting your news from? How are you taking stuff in?
Where I'm getting my news from? I mean, I hate to say social media, but
that's for real, though.
That's where I spend most of my time, But and just being into a lot of socially conscious music. I will say I hear from a lot of my artist friends and stuff like that. So we hold conversations and talk about this kind of thing. So social media is probably not the best place to get your news, I would say.
But it's the real place where most people get their news, right? So, and do you feel like you're getting enough socially conscious artists stepping up with you?
Yeah, I definitely do. I mean, it definitely has changed over time. I would say it wasn't the best in the past, but now, a lot of people are waking up and seeing what's going on, and then putting it into their music as well.
James and Vanessa, let's give the audience here a little glimpse of why I think and Ilana thinks that you're the superstars that you are, and representative of people in every state and every city that you can be voting for right now. So James, tell us a little bit about bills that you're seeing at the state level that are essentially being written and voted on here that also are not just happening alone in Texas, right? They're a model for what's happening nationwide, because we've seen that happen already.
Yeah, there's this growing movement in our country called Christian nationalism. And I want to clarify, because I'm the grandson of a Baptist preacher, been going to the same church since I was 2 years old. There is nothing Christian about Christian nationalism. What it's doing is trying to control people, control what they read, control where they travel, control who they marry, control when they have children. That it's masked behind Christian faith. And so what we've seen here at the local level in Texas is that Christian nationalists are using our state as a testing ground before they take some of these ideas nationwide. So I fought back against a bill that would have forced every teacher in Texas to display the 10 Commandments in public school classrooms. 10 Commandments are important to me, they're important to a lot of people, but as a former teacher, I can't imagine how a Buddhist student or a Hindu student or an atheist student would feel having the 10 Commandments posted all over their classroom. There was a bill to, and this is going to frighten some people, but I think it's important that you know what's being passed, a bill that would allow school districts to replace school counselors with untrained, unqualified, unsupervised religious chaplains.
Hold on a second. Just
public
give us a
schools.
second to process. That is bonkers. That is the definition of psychotic, dissociated from reality. Who is it in classrooms?
So it's these untrained chaplains. And, you know, there are chaplains who are doing important work in hospitals and prisons and the armed forces. And a lot of those chaplains have a master's degree. A lot of those chaplains take coursework in counseling and mental health. But the bill that was passed here in Texas has no standard for these chaplains to meet before they're working with our students. I try to assume good intentions in everybody, even folks I disagree with, try to find common ground. So when this bill was put forward, I filed some amendments to make the bill better, right? I said, okay, well, let's make sure they have a master's degree. Let's make sure that they don't proselytize in a public school. Let's require parental consent before a child meets with this chaplain. All of those amendments were rejected. So then I start to think, well, maybe this isn't a good faith effort to help kids. Maybe it is part of this Christian nationalist movement to blur the lines between church and state and attack our marginalized students in public schools around the state. But I do want to say, this was a state policy. It was up to local communities whether or not they implemented it. And folks across our state got riled up about this. I posted a TikTok about this with me asking questions of the bill author, and it got like 8 million views, and suddenly people started calling their school districts. And this is Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Christians, non-Christians, and I'm happy to say that as of last week, the 25 biggest school districts in Texas have rejected this policy at the local level. So there's a way to fight back.
Which actually comes full circle to getting our news on social media. You know, it's like such a blessing and a curse because it's a almost democratized way that we can reach each other, and we do, but then we're siphoned off into these binary points of view, I guess.
And if you're not reaching out, trying to find other points of view just to educate yourself, you don't actually know what's happening in other parts of the, deep, dark internet. So,
James, is that bill still going around in other school districts?
Yeah, so that was good news. Bad news is that this bill, like I said, is being exported across the country. So it's already passed the lower chamber in 4 other states, and there are 5 other states where it was introduced just recently in the past few weeks. So I want you to be aware that this is happening, but also have hope that there's a way to fight back and win for our democracy, our Constitution, and ultimately our faith traditions. This damages religion and people of faith because it's a perversion of Christianity, and right. I think there should be some optimism that we can fight back and win.
And what I'm hearing from you is people fought back, right? And it made a difference. Vanessa, you know, you represent Austin. We're all here as your guests pretty much today. So, you know, how are other cities like uniquely positioned to fight against conservative legislation? What have you learned? What can you say to give guidance?
Yeah, I mean, I think first we have to ask ourselves, why are our state legislators, particularly of a certain side, very focused on stripping away local control and local authority? You know, what is it about local policymakers that is so threatening to our state lawmakers? And what we know is that our local electeds are closest to the people. You know, you go to your grocery store, your library, you're going to see your council member. We're driving the streets that you drive on. We're taking the bus. We're breathing the same air. So we're uniquely positioned to understand the unique needs and interests of the people that we are so privileged to represent. Unfortunately, as James was saying, what we're seeing is this nationwide trend of legislatures very focused and intentionally trying to strip away. And what gives me hope is that what our communities have really organized and fought back from those efforts. And an example that we have here in Texas is we know recently, and this was decades in the making, we have essentially outlawed abortion in our state, which is it's a travesty for us to take 3 steps backwards in this day and age. But what we were able to do at the local level is pass legislation that decriminalized abortion. I hate to say those words, right? But that's effectively what we've done. We took action and we said that we're not going to dedicate any resources, any personnel. We are not going to prosecute any reported crimes because we understand what Austinites' needs are and what our wants are and what the priorities are for our community. We had 30 other cities across the nation pass similar legislation. And that is one way we can fight back when we have state overreach, when we have this abusive preemption. And that's where the power is. It's in the people. It's in the everyday Austinite, everyday Texan, everyday American organizing their communities, making their voice heard, showing up at city halls and state capitals and saying, this is not enough. We demand more, we deserve better, and we need to do something about it.
And I didn't even know that you can have a city within a state have that kind of power. So it shows, you know, a city within a state can fight back, a state within a country can fight back,
Right.
proactive and reactive.
And these certain lawmakers are trying to make Texas the breeding ground for the stripping of basic human rights, but then the people can stand up and make it the blueprint for how to fight that, which is
Inspiring.
much needed inspo. Jess, where do you get your news? Since we've been working together, you know, at such a granular level, these bills that are being passed, and Jess is like, wait till you see what's coming out next week. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to know yet. You know what I mean? I want to enjoy the rest of my week. How do you get news outside of being so up in it?
I wish I wasn't always so up in it, you know? I feel like I'm like looking at it from the inside.
I wonder if you even do read the news beyond, because you're doing...
I read the news. I also try to read other news from other countries to maybe get some other like perspective on how people see us. But I'm lucky. I mean, listen, I work at the ACLU. We have a lot of really smart people who are, you know, at the forefront telling me this is happening and giving a little heads up. So yeah, like I sometimes know early, like this isn't gonna go so well.
Yeah.
But that also gives us a little bit of time to prepare, right?
Yeah. And also I have a question, Vanessa and James. There's so much tech coming into Texas, LOL, here we are at South by. How do you like put guardrails? How can a state or city put guardrails on? I'm becoming obsessed with taxing billionaires. I feel like I'm like an aging Jew and I look like Bernie, like when I sit in a chair and cross my legs. So I'm just like, yeah, this is ruining the planet. Is there
want
a
some
way?
mittens?
What?
Mittens?
Yeah. And I'm wondering at the city and state level, like if you're seeing it, feeling it, the effect of tech coming in and so many people coming in because of your awesome tax situation, and how you might put guardrails up in your position.
Yeah, so I mean, so there's a variety of ways. Austin, we're now the 10th largest city. We're experiencing a tremendous amount of growth in our city. And as part of that, something that I've been very uniquely focused on is how do we ensure that Austinites are still able to call Austin their home, right? Because we have so many families that are getting priced out because of the income divide is getting greater and greater each and every day. So I focus a lot on anti-displacement policies. And so what that looks like is ensuring that we have housing navigators who are going into our neighborhoods that are rapidly changing, rapidly gentrifying, and they're providing information and resources to them on programs and services that are available. Now, knowing that we are in the digital age, and I know the big theme this year at South by is AI, artificial intelligence. I also brought forward an action on City Council where we passed an action that was geared on, okay, what does it look like for AI within our city? What does that look like for our municipal government? What are the guardrails that we can put in place? Because we want to ensure that with this rapidly evolving technology, it does and it can result, we know this, in racial biases. So we have to protect ourselves. We have to ensure that we protect our privacy or data rights. All of those are so important. So even as a tech city, we have to ensure that we're being proactive because we know AI is here to stay. I mean, it's everywhere now. But we want to make sure that that our citizens are protected and that they understand the technology.
Yeah, and we've talked about tech and social media and these billionaire-run platforms. They are manipulating our politics. They're abusing our attention, and they flatten us in so many ways. They rob us of context. They deliberately provoke conflict to get more clicks and therefore get more profit. And in my experience, things like fear and anger and outrage are like empty calories, right? They can give you a temporary boost of energy, but it doesn't nourish you. It doesn't sustain you. I just finished reading Jonathan Igg's new biography on Martin Luther King Jr., and I was struck by how Dr. King and his movement maintained hope in the darkness and how they persevered when things got difficult and how they refused to demonize and dehumanize their opponents. And it was because they practiced politics not as a sport, not as a hobby, but as a spiritual discipline. Right? They were anchored in something bigger and deeper and something eternal. And I think that's true of the social movements throughout history, that they're rooted in these spiritual traditions. And I think that's what progressives in this country have lost. And it's why we all feel so hopeless. It's why we all feel so burnt out, because we're anchored to our phones and not our traditions, right?
And just doom scrolling, right? So if like voting is a muscle, then I would think then it's also part of our workout that we need to, really combat that. And especially, right, in these like next 6 or 7 months, it's going to be a lot and it's going to be dark. So we almost have to work even harder to not like fall down the doom scroll, right?
Yes, and this new kind of politics needs to be done in the real world, in community with flesh and blood human beings. That's the only way this is going to work. We have to move from politics as a hobby to politics as a real, serious, spiritual discipline. I think that's the only way we're going to save
and not as a sport.
Right.
Danny, I'm wondering what policies you're aware of right now from the news you take in. Like book bans were big for a minute. Now I'm so
Still big.
Yeah, for a minute, like still being totally destroyed in classrooms. I'm like so confused about people saying IVF as a policy, but I'm like, this is just the reproductive freedoms sector, right? But they like move the target kind of, or they do strategically. Is what's coming up in your mind and what you're taking in?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I'm
Cool.
completely lost.
Cool.
Well, but Danny, when you were living like in Detroit before you moved here, what was happening in your community in Detroit that you couldn't help but see, and then be politicized just from living there?
I mean, right before I left, I left right after COVID and the whole pandemic thing happened, and then it was, Detroit is like a one step forward, one step back kind of city. Like every time we think it's getting better, it ends up just becoming even worse than what it was. So it was, I don't know, it was getting, I would say, more gentrified than it ever been. It was, things was looking on up. It was looking cool, man. And then, once the pandemic happened, I seen a lot of like up and coming businesses, a lot of like local stuff was getting shut down every day, and it was, it was pretty sad. I try to go back as much as I can, see my family and stuff, but every time I go back, it's just like, oh man, I'm so happy I live in Texas now. but it's, yeah, man, Detroit is a crazy place, man.
What does it feel like being here as an artist? Especially compared to being from home. Like I grew up on Long Island. I live in New York. How does it feel to have moved to such a different place? I
would say it's a lot less stressful. I feel like, it does get real hot here where you can't go outside almost. But in Detroit, it's almost like every year you probably get 3 or 4 months where you can't go outside because of the weather, So it was almost like that was my time where I was at my most creative because I didn't have any choice to do anything but stay in my house and work on music and stuff. And here, it's a lot more things to do, but I've kept myself disciplined and, travel around and work and stuff. But, I think for me personally, as living somewhere almost 40 years and coming here, it was just a time for me to leave. It's like I outgrew that place, and I'm much more healthier here, When I first moved here, I had intentions on, cleaning up. I was messing up a little bit with my addictions and lived too close to 6th Street, and it got a little worse. But I was able to, get help. I went to rehab, and, next week I'll be 1 year sober, so.
Congratulations.
I can, and I really feel like if I didn't move here, that probably never would have happened,
That's inspiring. Which is something that we need so desperately. It's so crazy, like the framework of how, just at baseline, I feel, and I'm like an optimistic person, just generally, but at baseline, things just feel so dire and freaky and sickening. But then to hear just a few examples of the way that what you've accomplished, even your long-term framework, Vanessa and James, how your long-term framework and how you're operating within the system, it like changes my context so quickly. Like the mood in my mind, it shifts so quickly where it's like, yeah, maybe you can, maybe we can survive. It's like such a quick, surprisingly easy shift in my mind. So not for sport, but just for muscle memory, I'm wondering if you guys can offer some more wins. Maybe, well, I really wrote this in a sports analogy, the best to my ability, someone who's not really athletically inclined, but both on the offense and defense that you've achieved, something that we can just take with us as hopeful.
Yeah, part of this Christian nationalist movement is trying to pass these things called private school vouchers. And if you're not an education policy person, you may have never heard of this, but essentially it's an effort to take tax dollars out of our public schools, which are underfunded as they are. Texas is 43rd in the nation in per student education funding. So it's taking dollars out of the classroom and giving it to unaccountable private schools, usually Christian private schools. Again, part of this effort to blur the lines between church and state. And the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, made this his top legislative priority for the year last year. He barnstormed the state, he bullied lawmakers, bribed some lawmakers, but we were able to defeat that bill at the end of the year because we built a broad-based coalition that didn't just include Democrats like me and Vanessa, but also included small-town, rural Republicans, because they understood that if the public school goes away in these small towns, there's not going to be anything left. Schools in these towns are not just places where you learn reading, writing, and arithmetic. They're community hubs, right? Friday Night Lights. It's what brings people together. And so they recognized it was in their interest to join this bipartisan coalition And once we did that, we stood strong, we defeated that voucher scam, and now we're pushing the governor to actually fund public schools and help our students and our teachers.
Yeah, and I would just add to that the importance of voting, and especially voting for people who reflect your values and priorities. Yes. Well, we know here in Austin, even though we are in Texas, we were able to pass the highest minimum wage for city workers in the country at $20 per hour.
Wow, incredible. That is awesome.
We've decriminalized weed, we've decriminalized abortion. These are progressive policies that are happening in the state of Texas, and they're happening because we have people voting. And it's so important to make sure that each and every election you're voting. Just recently, we just had our primary election a few days ago, and the voter turnout was 7% in the area. So if you voted, and my team was telling me, if you voted in this election, your vote actually counted about 14 times more because of all the people who didn't vote in that election, right? So just think about how powerful your vote is in shaping democracies and making sure that we are passing policies that are progressive and actually moving the ball forward. So just know, the most important thing that we can do, our generation, what we can do is to vote each and every single time like our life depends on it, because it does.
I'm so happy. Well, first of all, applaud that, because that was excellent. I'm so happy you brought up the voting part, because I think whether you're in Texas or New York, where we are, you feel like, my vote doesn't matter, I don't need to be there, it's fine. But so much is happening, and you have your ballot initiatives that are happening that can really make a difference. You wouldn't have been able to create this island within Texas if people weren't in there, getting the signatures for that ballot measure and then for voting. So, you're gonna hear a lot, you might be the one saying it, or you're hearing it of, there's so much going on, and I just don't think I can believe in anybody that's running for office right now, so we're just not gonna vote. We're gonna sit this one out. And it tends to be the people who are sitting it out are the ones who need people in power to represent them the most. So say something when you hear that, right? You must vote. That should literally be the easiest thing that you do when you're talking about being a part of a democracy. That's the tiniest muscle that you're working. So, please, look what you can accomplish. Try and remember that part. Spread that message.
And also just this authoritarian mentality, we're seeing it in New York. We both live in Brooklyn. We met for coffee recently in New York.
In New York.
The turnstile thing, the National Guard thing. They're having the National Guard in the subways to search bags. And there's Democratic Governor Kathy Hochul is yep, and if you don't like it, go home. No, I have to use the train, right?
And I don't want to be stopped and frisked, although we don't have as much of that to risk as other people. And again, the same people who we all need to be voting to protect everybody. It's kind of bullshit, right?
Yeah, and it's it sneaks up so quickly, and the lines between church and state being blurred, even the party lines, certain rhetoric slipping from one side to the other. It's so hard to stay on the ball, but damn, it's important in our daily lives.
And I would say that cynicism is easy. Yeah. It's really easy to say it's all corrupt, it doesn't matter, my vote means nothing. It's a cop-out, right? It's a lot harder to have hope. And Vanessa and I are both young elected officials. I was elected as the youngest member of the legislature back in 2018. And so
youngest ever or youngest in?
Youngest currently.
Youngest.
No longer, though. I'm now a decrepit 34-year-old. But I spent a lot of time talking to young voters and non-voters at the door, block walking my district. And I would hear this refrain over and over that I'm not interested in politics. And I honestly just decided to shoot straight, and I said, you may not be interested in politics, but your landlord is interested in politics. Your boss is interested in politics. Your insurance company is interested in politics, and until you are interested in politics, they're going to keep using politics to screw you over. And it's that level of transparency, especially with voters in in our generation that empowerment is contagious, and it's compounding. And they wouldn't be trying so hard to take your vote away if it didn't matter.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
I've been touring the country. I did 42 shows since June. You're about to go on tour, Danny.
Yes, you are.
It's so
I'm
layered.
looking forward to it, you know.
You say it again?
I said, I can't say I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. It's wild. It's wild. And like well, mine's more spaced out than yours is. It's hard to go. I do 2 nights away, 3 max, and then I go home and smell my child. So that's why it's been since June. But I just have this like feeling, and you know, like we have particular audiences who seek out our vibe or energy, whatever, and whatever we may represent to them. But I still have this feeling when I look at these people's faces and laugh with them across the country. I'm like, we are not as divided as the one guy who controls the algorithm is making us think. It's one guy. That's so messed up and should be illegal. He's like, you know, one person controls the entire algorithm. Like, why do you even want to? Don't you want to chill and vacay? Like, it's shocking and nonsense. If I owned an island, I'd be chilling on that island. I wouldn't want to control your mind, you know? I mean, and like, I'm desperate for your approval, for sure, but I don't want to control your mind. And I look at people's faces across the country and I'm like, I think like 70% of us agree, pretty much. 70% of us agree. We're at like the middle of the bell curve, but the one guy makes us think that we're each in 5% of the bell curve, and it's so messed up. And I'm just wondering how it feels to you, like, you know, I've, in the past 8 years, I didn't kind of even realize the politics that I was conveying with my art, and then became aware of it, and then kind of actually harnessed it. But I'm wondering how it feels to you, Danny, I mean, from your 6 albums prior and touring prior, but even like upcoming, how it feels, I don't know, with your values, how aware you are of them, and if this resonates with you. Do you feel like people just want to chill and be human beings together? I don't know.
No, definitely. I mean, to me, my music was always like a form of therapy for me. I would just put into it whatever I felt I was too ashamed to talk about with my friends or my family, so that was the best way I kind of got it out. But I, you know, since I've been sober and everything, because I used to put so much about, you know, just my mental health and where I was at in my life, and put so much of that into the music. But every day I get a message from somebody telling me, you know, how those songs that were trauma dumps to me, how much it helped them and made them look at themselves in the mirror and wanted to get help for themselves. So that's like, now, you know, more so I used to make music, and I don't know, I would just, like I say, it was a form of therapy, and some not so cool stuff, not so nice stuff probably was in my content, but now I'm at that point in my life where I just want to make people happy with my art, and to, you know, just to help people more. You know, I feel like I'm a vessel more than anything. I'm blessed to have this talent. I can't stop until God tells me when it's time for me to stop.
Right.
You know? So I just really want to help people now with it, you know, more so than, I don't know, than just make them dance and have fun, you know?
Yeah. So it's like almost like, I guess, a mental health thing in the beginning, a mental health vibe that people kind of latched onto. Because that was like the thing also about your music, that it sounded like one thing, but then you stop a second and process, and it was about mental health.
Yeah, it was cries for help.
Yeah, a true artist.
Ilana, can I put you on the spot? Because, you know, we met because you do what you do, I do what I do. But I look to you because I find you so inspiring. And the way you use your voice, nobody else's. Nobody else could pull off what you say. It's so you. And so people come to you. Danny, the same is true of you. Nobody else is singing or writing a Danny Brown song. And so you have this like amazing opportunity to be vulnerable, which has to be hard, I imagine. I don't know how you do it, but how do you feel when you're being so vulnerable? And in this instance, right, like you have power. You have power to change people's minds. Like, how do you deal with that responsibility?
I love what Danny just said about being a vessel. I totally I love that because I think my my therapist said something when I've been with my therapist for like 4.5 years, and early on in our relationship, he said something about stand-up that like just changed my life, which was that stand-up is impersonal. And I was like, totally so personal. And he was like, no, I said impersonal. And I was like, oh shit, bitch, you know? And it's like kind of reminds me of the vessel thing where it's like, I don't know, just letting something flow through you and not actually thinking, you know, it's actually like an ego thing to think that you actually have power over even your own gifts. You don't even have power of your own gifts, you know? You just, I think it's more of a spiritual practice to let it flow. And, you know, this year, for the past 8 years, I've been with Generator, with my co-founder. We make literal cheat sheets for elections and for key states and battleground states. And I love that work. I think it's fucking brilliant. But also, I'm like, there's also something to just sharing whatever like human foundation you can. And I do believe that most people will end up doing what has to be done or do the right thing. But this year, I think I'm less. I feel like the landscape has changed, where I'm not going to necessarily be like, you must do this, but instead change the frame and model. I'm doing this because of this, and damn, does it feel dire. Whereas before, I'm like, you got to do this thing, dog. You got to do this, but it's just changed this year. The rhetoric, not just events, but really the framework and the way that you say it, James, is really resonating with me. That it's changing politics and the like divisive, reductive algorithm is making it a sport and like so gross. I don't even want to look at it. I also like what you were saying, Danny, about getting your like current events from art and artists. It's like, it's kind of the way to do it. Because also like the news cycle changes so quickly, but then the values remain of people who, I don't know why people are so focused on stripping others' basic human rights. I just kind of can't get past that desire to control someone else's body to that violent degree. I'm just like, I don't get it. I'm very curious, I guess, about what that psychic sickness is. And it's so bizarre that it's masked as politics. That's kind of the area where I'm at right now. I'm like, this is literally ill. This is super sick. And I have to keep myself healthy as a private person. And then also, what do I think is the healthiest thing I can do? Well, I'll share that. Yeah.
Thanks. Danny?
For me, it's more so like she said, just feeling more so like a vessel and stuff. And back to her saying, like, you know, you tour, and you kind of realize that no matter what where they from or what walks of life they come from, that we most share the same views on a lot of things, you know? And a lot of people go through the same thing. Like I say, with my music, like people come to me telling me like how much it helped them when I was just really just asking them for help, you know? But now that kind of stuff keeps me on the straight and narrow, knowing how many people that I've helped, you know? So yeah, for the most part, it's like, you know, every vote counts, and everybody, you know, like everybody got to just stick together too, to be honest.
We're going to let the audience ask a few questions, right? Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to say before?
Me?
Yeah, you.
No. This has been so excellent. Thanks for co-hosting with me, Jess.
I would do it anytime, Ilana. Cool. All right, let's hear what everybody wants to say to all of you. You know, this is appropriate. We often hear every vote counts, but how can we encourage long-term civic engagement? I did not write this question, but it sounds like I did. I'm really sorry. Beyond just casting a ballot. So how do we get this to be a year-round, every year, not once every 4 years, once in a moment kind of thing? Go.
I think we have to highlight people who are certainly under 80, but under 50 is really nice too. It's so inspiring to hear you guys speak fluidly and just organically. It's really inspiring and encouraging and makes it feel like a community I can step into rather than this like heavy effing task that I must do.
I hope they maybe even inspire you, like if you need to quit your day job at some point, run for something.
Me? Oh. I don't.
Yes.
No, thank you.
Or you. I meant, everybody else out there, too.
But others, I think, for sure.
Can you share success stories or examples of grassroots movements that have driven significant change at the local or state level? I mean, Vanessa, you're a daughter of an immigrant, right? I mean, you've watched how organizations across the country, but especially in this state, have had to mobilize to protect immigrants' rights. Is there anybody that you want to point out? Or again, like, what are lessons that we can take back home to where we live?
Well, when I think about like, what are the movements that have truly driven progress in this country, if you take a look at our history, it's driven by our youth, right? It's driven by young advocates, by people of our generation and of the next generation who are truly driving the change in our country. We saw it in the civil rights movement, led by John Lewis, was one of the front runners, 21 years old, arrested 20 times before he was 23, all for guaranteeing our right to vote. We saw this in the women's revolution, reproductive movement in the 60s and 70s. Just down the street, you have the University of Texas, where Sarah Weddington was one of the first women to graduate from the University of Texas Law School. And she graduated from law school, could not find a job with the law firm here in town. So she decided to start researching anti-choice bills and how to combat the anti-choice legislation that was being filed. And she ended up being, at 26 years old, went to the Supreme Court of the United States and got us the right to choose. Whew. It's incredible, as a 26 years old.
Wow.
And so, with climate change, it was our youth who was driving that.
Right.
Even with President Biden canceling some portion of student loan debt. Again, this is all driven by mass mobilization, mass organizing, and it truly is, our strength is in numbers. So I would say beyond the electoral part of it, of casting your ballot, definitely organize around an issue that you are passionate about. Get involved, get your friends involved, get your family, and ensure that you're holding the system accountable. It's not enough to just elect people who demonstrate and model your values. You have to ensure that those policymakers, those politicians are adhering to what they said that they were going to do, right? Talk is cheap. We have to ensure that we have people who are actually going to move the ball forward.
And what you said about student debt, that resonates with so many people, right? And it was the president who announced that initiative, but that didn't just spring out of his brain, right? Like, that was grassroots organizations mobilizing, organizing people. Those are the masses of people. We're talking about these one individuals when we could be talking about all the people who were doing all the work, right?
Right.
Vanessa mentioned Sarah Weddington, and in the beginning I talked about how Texas is getting a bad name. It was a Texas lawyer who won Roe versus Wade. There is a long, deep history of progressive politics in Texas. We're the home of Ann Richards and Barbara Jordan and Molly Ivins. We're the home of LBJ and the Great Society. You wouldn't have Medicare, Medicaid, Title I, Head Start if it wasn't for Texas.
Wow.
And we have to remember
You should run
that
for
legacy.
office. That was...
I think it's so interesting to have politicians and artists on the same panel, but I think the common thread is this idea of doing politics as a spiritual practice.
Right.
The same way y'all create
Right.
your art. And that means that you have to resist the ways that the folks at the top are trying to manipulate us and trying to pit us against each other. Because in my experience, like with the voucher fight, politics is not really left versus right, it's top versus bottom. And there are wealthy special interests that are intentionally, strategically dividing us. to prevent us from recognizing how much we have in common, because once we do,
Right.
we join together and take power back for ourselves and our communities.
To tax them, literally. We'll be like, wait, why do I pay more taxes than you? And they're like, no, you're fighting. Can I just amend also? I'm like, I couldn't run. It's because I don't have the strength. Like, I cannot believe, I'm optimistic. I work in comedy. Like, the optimism that you have, it's unbelievable. I mean, how do you keep it up?
Compartmentalizing.
I think it's because for me, it's hearing from our community, right? Registering someone who is going to vote for the very first time. Those are the moments that I believe give me the faith and the hope that this is worth fighting for.
Right.
It's the individuals, it's the humanity behind the policies, behind the action. It's just knowing that we're all just trying to fight for a better life for each other.
Des, I wanted to ask this
The
localized question. Yeah, Kyle Wallace says, I work for the Texas Association of School Business Officials. James and Vanessa, what's your call to action for organizations like ours, the Texas Association of School Business Officials, and for people like me who work there?
Well, so y'all know that I used to be a teacher before I ran for office, and I taught 6th grade language arts in San Antonio ISD on the west side of the city. And I often joke that teaching middle school is the best preparation for serving in the Texas legislature. But my experience as an educator and now as an education policymaker, I've come to realize that public education is under attack at every level. These are existential threats to the project of public education and therefore to the project of democracy. You don't have a democracy if you don't have public schools. And so Christian nationalism is part of it. The billionaire mega donors who are funding a lot of these attacks are part of it. Book bans are a part of it. But once you connect all the dots, you recognize that they're going after our neighborhood public schools, our neighborhood public school teachers.
And criminalizing librarians.
Right. I never thought I'd see the day where our school librarians are enemy number one, right? I mean, and if you adjust for inflation, pay for Texas teachers has actually declined over the last 10 years.
Wow.
They're doing impossible work, and we've got the most powerful politicians in the country calling them groomers, accusing them of indoctrination. It should be unacceptable to every single Texan, every single American.
It's like, you're such a tough guy. You're going after sweet,
Librarians.
nerdy librarians? Oh my God. Fight each other, like at MMA. You know what I mean? Like, leave librarians alone.
There's your one takeaway today. Just leave librarians,
Leave the librarians alone. Should we do one more, Jess?
I think yeah, let's do it. Local victories, this came from Steve O'Dowd? Yes. Local victories can feel incremental. So how can we build momentum, translate all these local success stories that we're hearing into this broader change?
I mean, I would say organize, right? The grassroots movement. What we've seen here in Texas, what we were able to do on abortion and getting multiple cities to pass decriminalization policies is that powers in the organizing. So if we're able to get, even in the absence of state leadership or our federal government taking action, at the local level, we can ensure that we are passing policies that reflect our values. And so I would just encourage you to get involved, to contact your council member, your commissioner, and to share with them, what do you want to see change? What do you want to see happen? And that can help spark a movement with other cities throughout the state.
So let's leave everybody with, one last thought, Ilana.
Me?
Yeah, you.
So I'll say that I'm going to vote this year in whatever elections come up in my county and state. That's what I'll leave you with.
So let's leave here and vote. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
you,
Danny
Ilana.
Brown, Vanessa Fuentes, and James Tallarico. Thank you all for coming today. Stay safe out there. Bye.